Hi friends! Today we're diving into Chicago's wild history, gangsters, big skyscrapers, and inventions that totally changed the game. In this video, we're sharing some of the coolest facts about the Windy City. So relax, enjoy, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more fun history videos. In the 1930s, gangsters John Dillinger and Babyface Nelson terrorized the Midwest, robbing banks and attacking police arsenals. However, on November 27, 1934, the FBI tracked Nelson to Barrington, a Chicago suburb. A gunfight broke out, and 2 FBI agents lost their lives. Nelson was mortally wounded. He fled in a stolen car, but died from his injuries soon after. In the aftermath, his wife was arrested, and a man named John Chase, his accomplice, was caught and sentenced for killing an FBI agent. The first ever televised presidential debate took place on September 26, 1960. It featured Democratic Senator John F. Kennedy against Republican Vice President Richard M. Nixon. The debate was broadcast from CBS's Chicago studio at 630 North McClurg Court. This event changed American politics forever. Perhaps the biggest scandal in baseball history was the 1919 World Series. 8 players from the Chicago White Sox were accused of taking bribes to intentionally lose the series. Despite being favored, the White Sox lost to the Cincinnati Reds, which raised suspicions. In 1920, a grand jury investigation led to 4 players confessing, and 7 of them were suspended. In 1921, all 8 players went to trial but were acquitted because of missing evidence. However, the new baseball commissioner, Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis, banned them for life. The Home Insurance Building in Chicago was a total game-changer in architecture. Completed in 1885, it was the world's first skyscraper, standing 10 stories tall or 138 feet. It introduced structural steel framing, even though it used cast and wrought iron at first. In 1890, they added 2 more floors, reaching 180 feet. With advanced elevators, wind bracing, and plumbing, it helped shape the future of skyscrapers. Even though it had such a big impact, the building was demolished in 1931. The Iroquois Theater fire in Chicago on December 30th, 1903 was a tragedy. The fire started during a packed matinee when a broken arc lamp ignited the curtains. The flames spread quickly, trapping hundreds of people inside. Locked or hidden exits caused a deadly stampede as people tried to escape. A total of 602 people lost their lives, making it the deadliest fire in U.S. history at the time. Although the building was called fireproof, it lacked alarms, proper exits, and safety equipment. This disaster led to major reforms, like panic bars and outward opening doors. The theater was rebuilt but was eventually replaced. America's first car race hit the road in Chicago back in 1895, and it was a big deal. The Chicago Times-Herald organized the event with 6 vehicles, 4 cars, and 2 motorcycles. Frank Duryea's motorized wagon ended up winning the race. The whole thing was meant to boost interest in the auto industry and help sell newspapers. It was supposed to happen on November 2nd, but got delayed thanks to legal issues and some unfinished cars. The race finally took place on November 28th, with drivers tackling a snowy, muddy, 54-mile route from Chicago to Evanston and back. Duryea crossed the finish line first, taking 7 hours and averaging about 7 miles per hour. The race got people excited about cars and helped speed up car development in the US by at least 5 years. On May 4th, 1886, a bomb went off during a workers' protest in Chicago. The protest was part of a fight for an 8-hour workday, following a deadly clash at the McCormick factory the day before. When the bomb exploded in Haymarket Square, police opened fire on the crowd, killing 7 officers and several civilians. 8 men were blamed, even though some weren't even there. 4 were hanged and 1 took his own life. Years later, the governor of Illinois pardoned the ones who survived. The tragedy sparked fear, but it also pushed the fight for workers' rights forward. In 1900, the flow of the Chicago River was reversed to improve sanitation and prevent sewage from entering Lake Michigan, the city's drinking water source. This massive project involved constructing canals and locks. It is considered one of the most impressive engineering achievements in U.S. history. The Great Chicago Fire ignited on October 8, 1871 at 137 DeKoven Street, ultimately claiming around 300 lives. The fire left 1/3 of the city's population homeless. It burned for more than 24 hours, destroying more than 17,000 buildings. The city rebuilt itself using fireproof materials like brick, stone, and terracotta. This made Chicago one of the most fireproof cities in the U.S. Catherine O'Leary, a Chicago resident, was linked to the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, but history says she didn't cause it. The fire started near her barn, where she kept dairy cows, leading to rumors. Some claimed O'Leary admitted a cow knocked over her lantern, starting the fire. Others said they found the lantern pieces near her home. O'Leary swore she was asleep when the fire began, and investigators found no proof of her guilt. A journalist later admitted he made up the cow story and suggested the fire started at a neighbor's party. O'Leary became the face of the disaster. The story stuck because it was a simple explanation for a huge tragedy. Over time, the tale was romanticized in movies and folklore. O'Leary and her family faced public scorn, and she lived under the shadow of a crime she didn't even commit. The true cause of the fire may never be known, but O'Leary remains Chicago's most infamous scapegoat. In December 1953, Hugh Hefner, at the age of 27, launched Playboy Magazine in Chicago. He received help from investors and a $1,000 loan from his mother. The first issue was 44 pages long and sold 54,000 copies, mostly due to Marilyn Monroe's centerfold. In the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, Playboy's business offices were located at 919 North Michigan Avenue, and it was referred to as the Playboy Building. In a 2022 documentary, former employees accused Hefner of abusive behavior throughout his career. Chicago Mayor William Hale Thompson not only ignored organized crime, he welcomed it. During his 1927 campaign, he promised to reopen speakeasies shut down by his predecessor, protecting illegal alcohol sales. Al Capone supported Thompson with at least $100,000 in campaign funds. In return, Thompson appointed one of Capone's associates as a city employee, giving Capone direct access to City Hall. This connection helped Capone expand his headquarters, set up a gambling operation near City Hall, and grow his criminal empire without interference. Some claim the Chicago outfit, led by Sam Giancana in the 1950s and 60s, helped elect JFK in 1960 through voter fraud and a deal with Joseph Kennedy. No credible evidence supports the idea that the mob actually influenced the election. The Chicago Democratic Party, which was led by Mayor Richard Daley, placed a much bigger role in securing votes for Kennedy. Statistical analysis shows no unusual voting patterns in mob-controlled areas at that time. Many sources making these claims simply aren't reliable. The story is likely a myth with no proof of mob involvement in the election. The Treaty of Chicago was a huge loss for local indigenous people. In 1821, the U.S. took large parts of their land in Michigan, Illinois, and Indiana, leaving them with small reservations. Potawatomi Chief Matea warned that selling more land would hurt their hunting grounds and children's future. In 1833, the U.S. took even more land, including parts of Illinois and Wisconsin. In return, Native Americans received cash and land far west of the Mississippi. These treaties were unfair. Indigenous people were pressured to sign, and they lost land that they had lived on for generations. On July 12, 1979, Disco Demolition Night at Comiskey Park turned into chaos. Radio DJ Steve Dahl, upset by the popularity of disco, planned to blow up a dumpster full of disco records between two baseball games. The White Sox expected a small crowd, but over 40,000 fans showed up, with thousands more outside. People threw records, stormed the field, climbed poles, tore up grass, and lit fires. The second game was canceled, and the Tigers won by forfeit. There were 39 arrests and 9 injuries. After the Civil War, gambler Michael Cassius McDonald moved to Chicago and became known as the city's first true crime lord. He was first mentioned in Chicago newspapers in November 1868, when the Chicago Tribune reported his arrest for criminal conspiracy and running gambling dens. The 1893 Chicago World's Fair is remembered as both groundbreaking and chilling. Dubbed the fair that changed America, it introduced more than 27 million visitors to modern innovations like elevators, the zipper, Cracker Jacks, the Ferris wheel, and the first voice recording. However, the fair also had a darker side. During this time, H.H. Holmes, one of America's first documented serial killers, was active in Chicago. After World War I, many African Americans moved to northern cities like Chicago, seeking better job opportunities and a chance at a fairer life. But instead of equality, they were often met with overcrowded, segregated neighborhoods and ongoing discrimination. Despite this, they continued to fight courageously for their civil rights. In the summer of 1919, during a heat wave, tensions reached a breaking point. 17-year-old Eugene Williams, an African-American teen, accidentally drifted into a whites-only area at a segregated beach. A white man began throwing rocks at him. One of the rocks struck Eugene, and he drowned. When police refused to arrest the attacker, outrage spread. What followed were 13 days of unrest and violence across Chicago. When the violence finally ended, 38 people had lost their lives, hundreds were injured, and many African-American families were left without homes. Chicago's drainage problem in the 1800s was so severe it caused deadly diseases. Built on marshy land near Lake Michigan, the city's low elevation made it nearly impossible for water and sewage to drain properly. To solve this, engineers began raising buildings in 1858 to make room for a sewer system. They even lifted an entire block of buildings using jack screws. While this solution helped, it created a new issue. The sewers combined sewage and stormwater, leading to pollution. Today, Chicago treats waste at plants, but during heavy storms, raw sewage still flows into local rivers. Streeterville's transformation from a barren stretch of sand to a bustling Chicago neighborhood is one of the city's most fascinating stories. In the late 1800s, Cap George Streeter's boat ran aground in Lake Michigan, and he decided to claim the sandbar as his own. He began renting the land for waste disposal, which eventually led to the creation of a shanty town that angered the wealthy residents nearby. Despite multiple legal battles, Streeter refused to leave until 1918. In the 1920s, Streeterville flourished with the opening of the Michigan Avenue Bridge and new construction. On April 21st, 1967, the central Midwest was hit by a devastating tornado outbreak, leaving widespread destruction in its wake, especially in the Chicago suburb of Oak Lawn, Illinois. Known locally as Black Friday, this event became the largest tornado outbreak of the year and is still regarded as the area's worst tornado disaster. The outbreak spawned several powerful tornadoes, with 10 in Illinois alone, including one of the few documented F4, F5 tornadoes to ever strike the Chicago metro area. On January 26th and 27th, 1967, Chicago was hit by the most powerful snowstorm in its history, with 23 inches of snow and 50-mile-an-hour winds. The blizzard started early in the morning and continued until the next day, creating massive snowdrifts, some reaching 6 feet high. Thousands of people were stranded in cars and they couldn't find food or heat. More than 20,000 cars and 1,000 buses were stuck. Helicopters were used to deliver supplies, and more than 500 trucks worked to clear the snow. The blizzard led to 60 lives lost and $150 million in damages, about $1.38 billion today. Imagine a giant spinning tower built for the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago. George Washington Gale Ferris, an engineer, created the Ferris wheel to rival Paris's Eiffel Tower. Everyone thought it was a wild idea, calling him the man with wheels in his head, but Ferris proved them wrong. Standing 264 feet tall, it was twice the size of the Navy Pier Ferris wheel. With 36 cabins holding 60 people each, it made $725,000, equivalent to $18.5 million today, and was the fair's only profitable attraction. On May 25, 1979, tragedy struck when American Airlines Flight 191 crashed just after takeoff from O'Hare International Airport in Chicago. The left engine of the DC-10 detached from the wing, causing the plane to lose control. It crashed about 4,000 feet from the runway, and all 271 people on board lost their lives, as did 2 people on the ground. The engine detachment damaged the wing, resulting in a loss of lift and causing the plane to roll uncontrollably. Investigators found the crash was caused by improper maintenance procedures by American Airlines. Chicago is famous for its deep dish pizza, a beloved dish with a unique history. The creation of deep dish pizza, also known as pan pizza, traces back to 1943 when it was first made at the Pizzeria, located at 29 East Ohio Street, in a 19th century mansion in Chicago's near North Side. There might be thousands of bodies still buried underneath Lincoln Park. After the Great Chicago Fire, a graveyard there was basically abandoned during the cleanup, and a lot of those bodies were never moved. Some experts say there's as many as 6,000. In fact, back in 1998, construction workers found skeletons near the Chicago History Museum while building a parking lot. Wrigley Field wasn't even built for the Cubs. It was actually home to a team called the Chicago Whales. They played there from 1913 to 1915 in a short-lived league called the Federal League. The name Whales came from a newspaper poll where fans voted on what to call the team. The SS Eastland, once called the Speed Queen of the Great Lakes, was part of a fleet of 5 excursion boats meant to take Western Electric employees, their families, and friends across Lake Michigan to Indiana for a day of fun. But what should have been a joyful outing turned into a tragedy. Docked at the Clark Street Bridge in 1924, the Eastland never left the Chicago River. Due to a combination of instability, overcrowding, and design flaws, it rolled onto its side and sunk 20 feet below the surface while still at the dock, throwing 2,500 passengers and crew into chaos. Tragically, 844 people lost their lives that day, including 22 entire families. Chicago's most shocking crime happened on Valentine's Day in 1929. Al Capone's gang set a deadly trap for his rival, Bugs Moran. Moran's men arrived at a warehouse expecting cheap whiskey but were lined up by men dressed as police and gunned down. 6 men lost their lives, but Moran escaped. The public blamed Capone even though he was in Florida. That said, the attack was very likely ordered by Al Capone, although he was never officially charged. The world's first controlled nuclear reaction happened at the University of Chicago on December 2nd, 1942. The experiment was led by scientist Enrico Fermi. It was part of the Manhattan Project. This marked a major milestone in the development of nuclear energy and atomic weapons. During the Civil War, Camp Douglas in Chicago became a notorious prison camp for Confederate soldiers. It started in 1861 as a training camp for Union troops, but became a prisoner of war camp in 1862. From 1863 to 1865, it operated as a full-time prison. After the war, the camp was closed and sold. Conditions were brutal, with a 17% mortality rate. Later, more than 4,000 Confederate prisoners were moved from the camp cemetery to a mass grave at Oakwood Cemetery. Opened in 1930, the Adler Planetarium was the first planetarium in the United States. It has inspired generations of astronomers and space enthusiasts and remains a leading institution for science education and public outreach. On July 21, 1919, the Wingfoot Air Express, a Goodyear blimp, caught fire and crashed into the Illinois Trust and Savings Building in Chicago. The blimp was flying passengers from Grant Park to White City Amusement Park when its hydrogen gas caught fire at 1,200 feet. The pilot and 1 mechanic parachuted to safety, but 3 others lost their lives, including a passenger whose parachute got stuck in the blimp's cables. The crash sent flaming debris through the bank's skylight, causing 10 employees to lose their lives and injuring 27. This tragedy led to new aviation rules in Chicago and the closure of the Grant Park airstrip. On March 30, 2003, Chicago's Mayor Richard Daley secretly ordered the destruction of the Meigs Field, a small airport on the lakefront. Crews tore giant X's into the runway, stranding planes without telling the state or federal government. Daley claimed it was to protect the city from security risks, but many believed he wanted the land for a park. The Federal Aviation Administration fined the city for breaking the rules. In the end, Daley got his park, but his actions upset many and raised concerns about his use of power. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. If you like this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe for more videos like this, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Before you go, make sure to check out these 2 fascinating videos. Thanks for watching the History Stop, and we'll see you next time.